Hey everyone, welcome to Dialog Choices podcast. It's been
1 week since you
3
looked at
weeks.
me.
been longer than a week. I think we missed 2
No, it's been 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's been 3 weeks.
Holy shit, has it really been 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think you couldn't make it, and then I didn't have a computer last weekend, so we missed 2 weeks.
That's right.
Oh, right, because it was 4th of July weekend, yeah.
Last time we
You
were
built a new computer.
talking a lot about Moffat and Zero Escape, our favorite topics. Yeah, I built a new computer, and it was stressful.
Does it have a
But
lot
it's
of
working.
RGB?
Does it have a lot of the fans have RGB, which I immediately set to purple because they're like, want to be a crazy rainbow all the time? And I'm like, no, I like to look at the screen instead of be distracted by flashing lights all the time when I'm playing video games. I don't know who these are for.
Raves.
It
Rave
looks
goers.
cool. I have a Corsair that has backlighting, and the moment you buy that, maybe it's just to try to catch
You
your
mean the keyboard?
I have a
Corsair
Corsair.
makes so much stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's several.
I think you mean a
there's
keyboard,
several
right?
Corsair parts in my computer too, but I have a Corsair keyboard, and like it goes in wacky rainbow mode when you plug it in, and I can only imagine it's just to try to catch your attention at a store if they ever put one on display or something, because I can't
But it's
imagine
so cool.
what else it's for, because it's miserable. It sucks so much to have this
It's so cool.
irritating, stupid rainbow that's moving like directly under the screen you're looking at, because it's where your hands are, and it's like it's within your field of view all the time. So I immediately set that to only purple, but then because I would be rendering stuff at night and so on, that just meant that I had a purple light in my room when all the other lights were off. So now it's just set to off. It's just, I don't even use the light. I just use the keyboard.
Oh yeah, having a backlit keyboard is just so good. I've had one for years and years since before I got a mechanical keyboard, and the fact that you can just turn off your lights and just play or do things, it's so nice, especially now in the summer. I did get myself an RGB backlight thing for my screens, and so they're right now it's cyan, but in a little bit it's gonna be orange and all stuff. And so behind my screens, there's a little bit of RGB going on. I love RGB. RGB is good stuff.
No. Incorrect.
Andrew likes RGB as well. I know it.
Yeah, my graphics card, my RAM, my
Why?
CPU cooler, and my case, and my keyboard, my mouse, and I think, and my motherboard itself all have RGB on them.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
All my fans.
At
all
some
my
point,
fans are RGB
you just
as well.
already have lights in there. You don't need more lights.
But the
If there's anywhere
No,
I want
it's not-
lights, I want a light on the back of the computer, because it
So-
really sucks to like crawl into your desk and try to look behind your computer to deal with connections
That
and
is
shit,
true.
and it's like pitch
Yes.
black down there. I'm like, why isn't this lit? This is the one place I
So-
could use a light. I don't want to install
In my
a fucking
defense-
like light strip on the bottom of my desk or something.
In my
you
defense,
have a cell phone.
I didn't get much
that's
of
why,
a
that's
choice.
why I use it. Sucks.
You bought a pre-built, Andrew?
No,
Oh.
parts, all the good parts have RGB on them.
Yeah,
like
they're
that's
all
just
marketed
that's just
towards gamers.
yeah. So like I got the best RAM that my motherboard could support, and it has RGB on it. I didn't like choose an RGB RAM. It just that's
Yeah.
the only
Same
option
here.
I got. And my CPU
Yeah.
cooler has to have RGB because otherwise fucking gamers won't buy it. And so I
Yeah.
just
But you can
have
turn-
to do
Everything's
turn it off,
covered in
though.
RGB because that's how they
Well,
market it as a premium product.
yeah.
So now my
Like, I
fucking
didn't-
fans have a remote control in the wiring system that I have to just fit somewhere inside my computer case and try to manage
Yeah.
that, because there's like there's a bunch of extra long wires where there's like
Oh yeah, RGB is super hard to wire.
it's like 7 separate connections that are all daisy chained end to end, just so that you could also put a remote control in the middle of those wires that then controls the RGB. And then you're trying to close your fucking computer case, but you're trying to manage where that stupid controller is dangling in the wire process, because if it's in the wrong spot as you're trying to close the case on all these wires, it'll fucking push buttons and change the colors. It's like,
yeah,
motherfucker.
I have a thing inside of mine that it's like a controller for all of the RGB. So the RAM doesn't plug into it, but my CPU fan and my case, my CPU, and my graphics card all plug into this little device. and like basically it works with one controller, and so I can just turn it all off. And with the RAM, I have to just install the stupid Corsair application, and then I can turn off the RAM. And so I don't have to have them on. I basically only turn them on. I only turn them on if I'm streaming.
When you need to mesmerize somebody.
Yeah. But
I was gonna make a more specific joke, but I can't remember who the snake mind controls or confuses in Jungle Book.
And so actually the only beneficial thing about RGB on both CPU and my graphics card is I have them set to color coordinate because I can see my computer. It's on my desk. And so the only thing that's nice about them is I set both of those to turn different colors if they're overheating. Yeah. So if my CPU gets too hot, it turns red and I can go, uh-oh, fuck. Or same with my graphics card. But my RAM never is going to overheat. It's just a dumb fucking disco show. And I don't need that. I can just keep that off. And my case is fine. I don't mind my case having colors on it just because it's whatever. And so what I do is I just have my case light sync to my keyboard light. And so my keyboard and my case are the same colors, but everything else is just functional. It's just showing the heat, so that way I know if I need to be careful or if something's going wrong or something. Because that's really the only benefit of RGB, is that you can use it for all lights exist to do, which is to signify, good or bad.
Yeah, the thing that all the lights in your computer used to do.
Yes, exactly. And the fans are like, I can't turn the fan lights off. I just have to endure that hardship.
You can't.
No, I can't change the color because the fans themselves are a color fan. Like they don't.
Oh, they don't have the.
Yeah, they don't have an off
controller.
switch. Yeah. But my case, I got a case that's really dark, so you can't see the color on the case fan or on the fans.
Oh, you got a dark glass.
Yes, so it's a very dark glass. Yeah. And the top. So at the very top, you can see the color fan, but no one looks at the top of your computer. And you can't see them from the front of the case because the front of the case has this RGB thing blocking the way. So it's just the RGB for the case that blocks it. So you can't see the fans on the inside that have RGB. So the only lights you can see from my computer are on the case itself and the three parts that I listed. Everything else is too light or isn't light enough to get through the darkness. So that's the counter off. But I don't know. At the end of the day, my bigger complaint is that adding RGB adds expense, and I don't want to pay this unnecessary expense for a function.
Premium gamer feature.
Yeah,
which has
and I
nothing to
don't
do with
want
performance,
that.
but it makes people think it performs better because it looks like a expensiver thing.
Exactly, and the only time this has been beneficial to me is keyboards. The fact that keyboards light up is the only good thing RGB has ever brought into my life. Because
sorry, finish the.
No, I was just saying because I hate using keyboards that don't have lights on them. It's infuriating to not be able to see keyboard or key lights.
I also recently found that having I have a Logitech G502 for my mouse, and it's got this little Logitech symbol that is lit up, and it changes the color according to the profile that I have it set. You can configure it not to change the color, but I have found that it changing the color according to the profile is really, really helpful because sometimes I will not know what, you open your browser and it's the profile for the browser, so the keys in the mouse will change tab or close tab and all this sort of stuff. But then I open Excel or something and it changes to the profile for that, where the keys will switch to the next row or whatever. And having the color change because of that is really handy because you always know what software you have selected. And because I have 3 screens, it is easy to not know what you're controlling at any one time. Of course, I'm used to it, but it's still really handy. So I'd say that keyboard and mouse are really handy to have RGB.
I mean, they're least intrusive. You're not. You don't feel overwhelmed by it. It's more of just your hand covers your mouse. So it's usually just something you can quickly glance at and go okay, and then put your hand back over. And a keyboard you're not really, unless you can't type without looking at it, you're not really looking at your keyboard often, but it's nice to be able to look down and go what the fuck? What's going on? Does my
Yeah, when you get lost.
Yeah.
But solid
Should we talk about
colors,
the
right?
Windows?
What was that?
Solid
We're not
colors. I
we're
do
not
have solid colors,
sociopaths, right? That leave it on a rainbow
yeah.
mode.
My computer case is my computer case is rainbow mode, but I don't look at it. So
But the fucking keyboard
key-
on a rainbow mode, fuck that.
no,
It's
mine
so
doesn't have.
my
It's
my
too
keyboard
cheap to have
is my keyboard's 3 different colors. It's blue, purple, and pink. So it cycles. It's like kind of cycles between. All the keys have different colors, and they cycle between them in that kind of like a wave. But
No, it's the wave effect.
yeah, it's just that I don't know. I like them to be purple, and I like outrun kind of colors. But I don't want it to. Yeah, I just don't
the
want
old racing game.
Yeah. It's also just like the retro wave movement, like vaporwave and outrun.
Yeah,
and,
your website's got like that one Horizon grid thing.
Yeah.
The one that gets memified into like now that's what I call yikes or whatever
Exactly.
by all the meme generators.
So that's I just keep those colors because they're nice, but they're not. I hate the fucking like when you first buy the keyboard, turn on your keyboard, it comes with this like nightmare rainbow key thing where it's like blah, 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 and you're like, oh, please stop, just please.
It's got every color at once and it's all moving, and it's like I don't need
Jiggly colors.
Nothing I add to my gaming area should be like additional motion that isn't on the screen. You should not be making me like snap my eyes to it because I swear something's moving in my room. Like that can't be a thing. You're gonna tank my SR, bro.
Your APC? No, wait. Which one is APM? APM. That's the one.
Oh, my APM's shit. But that's why I can't handle
just
all those crafters.
You need to use more keyboard shortcuts.
Nah. I just don't like it. I just any games that play like that, I have a miserable time even trying to get good at them. I just don't like that entire style. If I'm playing a competitive game, I pretty much just want something snappy that has like a relatively small number of inputs, just total, and then it's just about doing good with that and them hopefully being interesting with that, which is why Overwatch is like perfect for me. I love that every character only has like 4 buttons, but they're like really interesting in what they do with those buttons.
Yeah.
And they make a incredibly dynamic game around that, as opposed to like StarCraft, where it's just this mountain of memorization and knowledge and menu trees and trying to be precise with your mouse, clicking on like a top-down camera, and it's just too much. Granted, I've been traumatized from my first ever competitive experience of any game being that I played Age of Empires and loved it as a kid, but then I played one match online ever and got immediately crushed, where I was like, wow, I just got from the Dark Age to the Stone Age, and then like 50 Imperial Cavalry came in from the end game of the progression system and just steamrolled my entire face. And I'm like, oh no. Because like the people who play campaigns and RTSs and the people who play them online are playing different video games.
Yeah.
That is very much the experience of RTS online. It's such a different experience, though. I think I don't know.
That's why I can't play MOBAs that are RTS style. Like the whole scheme relies on thousands of hours of experience with an entirely different control scheme. Just like how my friends that play RTSs can't play Overwatch because they don't play shooters. But even though there's like similarities in their structure outside of their controls and perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm way more likely to play like Sunday Night Combat or Monday Night Combat, whatever the day of the week Night Combat it was. That's a shitty name for a game.
I do not know this.
Which I've never, I've barely ever played Smite, but from what I've seen of it, I was like, oh, it's like WoW with better controls. I could play this. But then the one time I got introduced to it was because our friend Spider just really wanted to crush us all in it. He was totally the like older brother that wants to trick you into playing a fighting game so he can just crush you over and over again. Like it was no fun for anyone, and that's like one of my only experiences with Smite.
Oh.
I was like, oh, it's like the MOBA structure thing, but without the having to RTS. I mean, that's a good thing.
It sounds like you got a real experience of MOBAs then. Like that's pretty much all MOBAs are.
Yeah, people having a crushing, just a distressing amount of experience, and the gulf is just like insurmountable. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like why I don't play chess.
Yeah.
Anyone who wants to play chess with you is way better at chess than you. And so it's never fun to play chess. But on top of that,
And
the
then the
game has
thing-
like no theming and no like exciting elements to latch onto beyond the getting crushed. So I just never want to play chess.
The thing is, if you're playing chess online, I've played chess recently. I don't play chess very much, but I definitely share the experience that you're saying. If you're playing chess online with randos and you don't talk and it's just a normal either bullet chess or something that's a little bit slower, it doesn't matter. For like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or however long it lasts before you lose, inevitably, you're like setting your pieces up and all that. It's just this is going. Oh, look at this, and it's all it's you think that you're neck and neck because chess is kind of a little bit like that. If you're playing against experienced players, is before they absolutely demolish you, it feels like it's neck and neck, and then they just there it is, checkmate, and you didn't even see it. There's a move that. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's just like chess involves so much foreplanning and so much knowledge of like the meta essentially, and like that like all the good players. Whenever you hear about like actually good important players facing off each other, they like give up 20 moves before the match would have even ended because they can see so far ahead. They're like, oh, I already lost.
Yeah,
it's like I don't even want to play any game that involves that many stages of pre-planning. I kind of and the core of that, the core problem for me there of why it's even allowed to be that kind of game is because it's a head-on-head game. It's one-on-one. If the moment you make a game more than 2 players, you can't plan that far ahead. It's impossible. You can have goals, but like in Twilight Imperium, you cannot know what your enemy's going to do from turn to turn, let alone all of your enemies. And so you can only have like things you would like to accomplish next turn that you're working towards, but you can't be like, and that's definitely going to happen because that's how they would definitely react to that because it's the only reasonable way or whatever the fuck. Like that whole idea is out the window, and then you get a story and it's fun. And I like when the game is complicated and long enough to turn into a story and unpredictable enough that you never know how the story is going to end until it does.
The thing is that that also applies to much more complicated games. But the thing is, for you to be able to tell that story or see that story, you need to know how to play it. And that I saw that for me. Like I never specifically in StarCraft, I never got into watching StarCraft. I couldn't really understand
why people do what they do and stuff.
Yeah. Even with the commentators explaining, and some commentators are good, others not so much. Even with the commentators explaining, it's still difficult. But then when I finally got into online StarCraft and got the basics down and started seeing what I could do or what I liked to do or the reactions and all that, the very first game, and I've watched a few since then, but the very first game that I watched, I just looked it up on YouTube. It was like a revelation. It's like you just can tell what's going on, and it's beautiful. It's a great thing. It's watching StarCraft is great, but you do need to know how to play, I feel.
Yeah, I can only watch a game that I have like a relatively deep understanding of already. Like I never gave a shit about Overwatch matches until I actually knew a lot about Overwatch. And even then, it's still just never as fun as just playing the game. I don't fully get esports.
I think there's something interesting about seeing well-planned, well-made plans executed properly. Because in your mind, when you play Overwatch, you're like, okay, if we just do this fucking thing, it would be amazing. And it never happens. But when you watch it on a professional level, you're like, yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing I want to do one day. Like, look how cool that was. They just they did alts on command. They did like a Reinhardt ult and everyone went down. And then they did like a Reaper came in and just murdered everyone. Or like, you have like, oh yeah, now they have Monkey going. And at the same time, they have like a Bastion tank going off. So it's just literal fucking chaos. You just have like pushing and explosions. It's just like there's so many cool things in competitive Overwatch, and then you go to real Overwatch and you're like, that fucking guy got lucky that my team is a bunch of bananas and they just didn't move. And like on a professional level, it's so much different. You see like that team couldn't do anything. Like they knew what they're doing and they knew how to like counter it, but there's just only so much you can do when there's like a better laid plan than yours.
To some extent, I feel like the game's so chaotic and has so many moving parts at the same time that it's really hard to spectate a whole team, even when you like the game and know it a lot. Whereas, like,
like commentary is nightmare for Overwatch League. You're just kind of like, you feel bad for these people where you're like, what do you say when there's like, like 12 characters basically, and all those characters are doing something on the stage.
Like everyone's so busy. So to some extent, like if I'm watching Overwatch stuff, I'm way more likely to be watching like just a person. So instead of esports, it's more like watching a like Overwatch celebrity, I guess. Like just watching one person known for playing Overwatch well, and you just follow their perspective the whole time, as opposed to trying to follow a team. Like Yeatle is very fun to watch because Wrecking Ball is an incredible character to spectate.
I believe it's on the Overwatch League website, you can watch individual player cameras. And so you can say like, I want to only watch what Yeatle does this entire match. And you can just watch from his perspective the entire match. And it's really cool. It's really cool to see. I love to watch cooldown usage. It's really interesting to watch people's decisions to use cooldowns. And you think of like some of these cooldown usage are like very clutch, like seeing a Mei go and it's like literally 2 fucking health, and then the Mei does the ice block, and you're like, well, you either got lucky or this is like the best. This is like the best reaction time I've ever seen. Like there's so many. Tell. Exactly, and it's just like, how do you know? You know, you're not there, but it's still like some of these are just like, how did you do this? How did you pull this off? But again, you have to know. You have to really know what's happening, and I could see. Like Overwatch League is such a great example because when they started broadcasting it on like Disney XD last season, it was but Overwatch League was like on like cable television, and it's just so impossible. It literally was like those cartoonish like anime shows where they're trying to like tell you how the game works while the game's happening.
Disney
and it's just like
XD.
But well, because Disney owns ESPN, and so technically, Overwatch League has a contract with ESPN to air their Blizzard has a contract with ESPN to air their stuff with ESPN. So that means it can go to Disney XD too. And so because Overwatch is kind of in a teen, like it's a teen demographic is the game, is like the audience for that game. Disney XD is for like a teen audience. So it works out because like ESPN is full of a bunch of like old people drinking beer all day, getting mad at like adult people who have way more money and are way better fit than they are. And like Overwatch doesn't work well for that.
Sports, like, ladies and gentlemen.
That's all it is. It's just like people who literally could not play sports being mad at people playing sports. And you're like, what do you want? Like, do you want to do it? You want to kick the ball? Like, but so I don't think I don't know. I personally don't think that video games are interesting enough to be like ESPN level sports because most video games are too complicated to function. Like football is really easy. Baseball is really easy. It's like the same game with just a different way to transmit the ball. Like football, you got to carry it. Soccer, you got to kick it. Baseball, you got to hit it. That's it. But it's like the whole point of it is take ball and hit somebody with the ball. It's all you want to do. Like you got to hit something with that ball. And so it's like video games are different. Video games are a lot harder where it's like you want to watch Overwatch on ESPN? Well, did you make sure and tell everybody how like each character works, how ults work, like what capture points are, and sometimes it's payload and like what like
payload. I think that what carries normal traditional sports on, in terms of viewership is always going to be the team aspect. For sure, like there's going to be people watching because they just love watching the sport. But like it's so easy to just hook onto a team that you like and follow their career,
energy.
and that's why you watch it. I think in esports you can also have that, but that's what Twitch is for. You just go and watch their Twitch channel.
Yeah. But again, on Twitch, like you generally know the game you're looking at. Like you don't, I don't know, I don't assume most people watch a League of Legends streamer and go like, wow, I think they're doing good. I don't know.
Video games are partly really weird to compare to sports because of the fact that like they can have more than one game. Like football's just football. Whereas like, yeah, like you mentioned like payload and stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah, Overwatch just literally has different games.
Different games.
Yeah.
Like that would be a new sport in other contexts.
Yeah, there's several mechanics in just one game, or yeah, like several matches in one game, and it's a grab bag. Like Overwatch League is, you can go from capture point to payload to capture point, and so like it's not even just like a consistent through the match, which is again confusing for an audience who's never seen it before. And MOBAs are the same way, where you're like, when you watch a MOBA and you're like, okay, I get the premise. You go from, you want to conquer their base. Okay, easy, I got this. And then it shows over to like 6 people attacking a random mob that just appeared. And you're like, what the fuck is that thing? Is that important? Why are they doing that? And then like suddenly it's like, oh, now the whole map's on fire. Like, how did the fucking map catch on fire? It's like, oh, well, this team killed that mob and that mob creates a fire flame. It's like, what the fuck? Okay, so like, do they still have to get the objective?
It quickly becomes Blurns Ball.
Yeah.
Like, Futurama's parody of baseball. Because baseball itself is one of the weirder sports where it just feels like a series of random mini games that are happening in a weird order. And you're like, none of them seem to correlate with each other. Like baseball and football and other sports, basketball and football and stuff like are often like, okay, very straightforward. There's 2 sides. Ball, you want the ball to go on the other side, whatever that means, and that's mostly just structured around that. It's very easy to comprehend most of the basic structure. But if you try to learn baseball without just growing up with it being taken as a granted, it's like, this seems like 12 unrelated games. What's happening?
Yeah,
and video games are that times 100.
It's intense. Whereas like there are some
Except
games
Rocket
that
League.
Yeah, there are some games that are a lot easier. Like Rainbow Six Siege is a much easier, or Counter-Strike is a much easier game to have on a broadcast competitive, because it's the premise is easy. Kill the other team.
It has such a
end.
clear round pacing. Where when you start learning the more about it, you're like, okay, so at the beginning they use the points they got from last round to buy things, and then they just go fight each other again. And that's just the loop over and over again. And you have this big thing where like, so you can really feel like somebody won or didn't win. You face off like 15 times to really prove who won, and it's the same map over and over and over and over again. So even within one round on a map that you've never seen before, in a game of that structure that you've never quite seen before, you're immediately like, okay, just through repetition, I'm picking up on like, okay, he's taking this path now, and oh, he flanked that guy, and like it's comprehensible in a way that most video games aren't.
Yeah, I mean, you still get the challenging part where like Siege and CS:GO have different maps, and so obviously like one round is, like Siege is like best of 3, so you're on the same map until someone wins a best of 3, easy. But then you go to a new map, and so there's a whole different variable going on. There's whole different entrances, different guns you need to use, different like strategies. And that can be interesting, but again, it becomes a challenge for like, you tune in and you're like, what the hell? What map is this? Or you like look away and suddenly you're in a different map. You're like, what happened? Whereas like football's in the same field, the same exact looking field in like 20 different cities in the same state. It's like the exact same damn football field. And so it's pretty easy. Like it doesn't matter when you turn on a game of football, you're just like, okay, yeah, they're just at that point in the field. Got it. Easy. Like, which, yeah, I don't know. I think the worst game you could possibly choose to make a competitive esport out of would be like Mario Party. where it's just fucking hell at all times.
Well, it's also
where
just a bad competitive game if you care that much about who wins. Like, it's not a fair game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it is like literal chaos. It's like a chaos simulator. Like, you could just, that guy rolled a 6. Oh, okay, I guess it's now they're blowing up balloons. What the fuck happened here? Oh, press it faster, I guess. I don't like what's happening. Like, there's it's very chaotic. Whereas like shooters are, there is like this level of, you can see the level of skill. You can see someone's like quickness in turning, someone's like ability to recognize, hear, like spatial awareness. You can hear like, oh, they hear the person coming. They know exact angle they're going to be coming at. They're like properly prepared, or they shoot ahead of time when they know the person's like, there's a lot of like with first person shooters, there's a lot of factors you can have in like presenting your skill. Whereas there are like MOBAs and stuff can be a little bit more challenging to gauge someone's ability, where it kind of does feel almost like chaos.
Yeah.
And
that was my experience when I played, I think it was Dota 2 for the first time. I went on a 1v1 against an experienced player, and obviously I got completely demolished. But for a long time, it felt chaotic, and it took me a while to even understand what was going on at the time. It's just there are too many variables, and people know what they're doing as well. Like, there's itemization, there's builds, there's strategies in the map, there's second-to-second gameplay based on what abilities you're facing. Rocket League, though, you mentioned Rocket League before. It's sort of a weird thing that it hasn't become like the big esports title.
Didn't it do well? I don't really know how.
I think it has a pretty it has like a semi okay competitive scene.
I think so,
but it's not. I don't think it will ever get mass appeal, just because I don't think there's like the user base for it. I don't think there's enough people. I don't think there's like enough people to play it competitively to make a league, like a real solid league out of. Whereas like, like MOBAs have this almost unlimited user base. It feels like MOBAs never run out of people. And first person shooters, especially like you have Valorant or CSGO, where it's pretty, well, I guess not CSGO because it's not free, but like Valorant's free. So you have like a fair amount of people coming in at all times, and Overwatch is cheap enough now where like in the height of Overwatch's popularity, it was like pretty affordable enough for most people to just jump in.
But Rocket League is free as well.
Rocket League is free, but I would say the harder aspect is, again, it's soccer is a hard game to play on a video game. Adding like toy cars that fly around at like million speeds per second make it a lot harder to play soccer. I don't know, like personally, I can only speak to myself. Personally, when I watch Rocket League, I don't see somebody winning based on skill. I see someone winning based on luck. Like, oh damn, that ball just happened to go the direction you wanted it to. I don't see people doing that. It doesn't feel like people actually did like serious control to get that ball there. It feels like they just
the game
happened
seems like
to
it takes like an astonishing amount of skill.
You're very far away, Keith, by the way. I don't know if what happened. It might be on the recording.
I turned off. I noticed that it was flickering constantly, so I turned off automatic game control because I had turned it on during the raid.
Oh, okay. That's on our side.
That's Discord.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I interrupted what you were saying.
No, I just that's the way I see it. So I maybe I'm just viewing it at a weird angle. I just don't. To me, it feels kind of just like a huge grab bag of like, well, they just happened to get it. I don't know. Like it doesn't feel like I can determine exactly what someone did to win. It's always just like, oh, I guess their car hit it a certain way that made it spin.
I think it's kind of hard to distinguish from the lucky stuff that you would do when you're playing it yourself, because it looks similar. But the people that are on the higher end, like the whole reason they're there is because they're able to do it on purpose. Like they can do those ridiculous things where they like see the ball launching through the air from across the map, and they do this ridiculous flipping jump across the map that knocks it directly into the goal, and you're like, okay, I don't know how the fuck you got that precise. Like, you not only knew how to get the car exactly where it needed to go at the exact, but you also did it at the exact time to hit the ball at the exact angle to make it go there. And I'm like, that's impossible. That's impossible. How the fuck do you do that?
I think those are the easiest moves. There are harder moves that they pull off, like judging how hard the ball is going to be centered if your teammate is centering the ball, and you judge it based on the speed of their car, or predicting where the ball is going to be shot, so you are there already before the ball is even hit by the opponent. And then there's fake outs because of that. And there's the one thing that I do that looks in Rocket League, the one thing that I do that looks the most like lucky is when the ball is diagonal to the goal, and then I hit it with the back of my car as a sort of a backflip, and the ball just sort of ricochets the other way, and it looks very much like it's just lucky that it goes into the goal. But I've done it enough that I know more or less where it's going to go. So it is a bit of luck on my account, but that game is it's really complicated, but it does. I understand what Andrew is saying, that it looks like lucky, but like it's lucky half the time. But there's just so much you can do to steer the luck in the direction you want it to go. That in pro games, it very little of it is luck.
Yeah, I guess it's like I said, like, you know, it just is soccer with toy cars. That's the entire premise.
Yes.
And with soccer, I guess it feels more grounded because there's not these like ridiculous aerobatic shit going on. Like a soccer player isn't jumping into the air doing 360 no-soap spins and then like downward kicking a ball and it bounces into a goal like gravity doesn't exist. Like there's this weird, I guess, like there's this grounded reality element to a ball moving in a consistent method each time. And you can see that like someone just has really good coordination over like moving the ball with their feet. Whereas in Rocket League, it feels like there's 6 different people that are playing this like crazy circus fight over a beach ball. And I don't know, I guess it's really hard to gauge like who did what. You can see someone's car do a 360 flip and smack the ball with the hood of their car at a specific angle that makes it bounce down and then up into a goal. And you still kind of go like, was that? Yeah, like, was that on purpose? Did they like cue this ball up, or did someone cue this for them? Like, what was the path that took to here? Is this like all one person's ability? Is this a team-based thing? Like, did it like, I don't know. It's, you know, it's like with or basketball or soccer.
That headshot me without knowing I existed.
Yeah, like in soccer, it's very rare that you just kick a ball and it happens to go in the goal. Like you can't just like, oops, my bad. Like it's happened for sure, but it's not the norm. You don't normally see a World Cup match and someone just like kicks a fucking ball halfway across the map and it goes in. Whereas Rocket League, that happens. You could just fucking knock a ball halfway across the map and it just goes into the goal. And you're like, what? Did you do that on purpose? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, how?
I think that actually is the... Sorry.
I was going to take it from a different direction, which is just that, like, if it's not doing well as an esport, which I don't fucking know what esports are doing well or whatever.
How do you gauge that?
But if that part's true, then I figure it's likely because of the fact that it's too much like a sport. Like, that's not what esports really are. Rocket League is such a clean sport interpretation directly into a video game. And it's like, that's not what anyone... People want kill streaks. They want spectacle. Like, it's not about the game being 100% fair and clean and easy to understand and interpretation of how real sports are. Like, people want to see, like, mad headshots or, like, a fucking MOBA kill streak or some, like, unlikely thing happening, and it's probably got to be violent. Like, that just gets more attention. Like, I think that's just kind of built into the whole thing to some extent. Like, it's being this like violent thing with kill streaks, and I don't mean like Call of Duty kill streaks as a mechanic. I mean like getting kill streaks like as a concept. like pulling off something that's like viscerally satisfying and seeing somebody best multiple other players in one go and so on is more satisfying than watching like an abstract point system go up as you like, yeah, you deal with all the artificiality of sports, which like to some extent you might even see like real life sports as a replacement for old world like blood sports, where it's like once upon a time people would gather up to watch people murder each other in one way or another, be like gladiatorial arenas and jousting and so on. And real sports are safer. I mean, it's not great for football players long term and so on, and wrestlers. It's not amazing, but you're not usually dying on camera in those games. And so you have like a career and so on, and it's like a civilized worlds thing. But video games don't give a fuck. They're like reality doesn't matter. No one gets hurt in video games because they're video games. So turning around and restricting yourself to the civility of modern sports is almost like pointless. And I think that's part of why, if like something like Rocket League might not do as well, is because like, why are we playing admittedly radical soccer, but still like, why are we playing soccer when we have like guns and swords and magic and shit? Like that's the people that are into video games are totally up for like the theming and the fantastical elements and the violence and so on. Like that's kind of already familiar and used to, and like so it's like, why bother not having those to some extent?
Yeah, that makes sense. I could see that being the case.
I guess that makes sense. It is also hard to gauge what are the patterns for esports, because you see like a MOBA and they have like what, 50 $100 million prize pools and these viewer counts in like the trillions, and you're kind of like, all right, I guess there's a huge market for this. And then you look at something like Overwatch League, which like is getting worse every year. Like it has a dwindling fan base year after year, and it's not, the prize pools are fine, but it's not nearly as impressive as like Dota or League of Legends or whatever, or like I don't know. And so it's like there is no I don't know. It's like with like normal sports like football, baseball, soccer, whatever, there's not really, they're just kind of there. They're just always present thing. They just never go away. And so it's not about their popularity. It's about, I guess like a country's willing. Yeah, it's like a country's willingness to keep affording this luxury to exist. Like it all of this is like just a weird, like subsidized entertainment. It's basically just the Colosseum from Roman days, but changed. It's,
individual
like the
sports have been around for so long at this point that they've outlived any individuals that are watching them. So they are, because of our short generational memory span, that just makes them immortal forever things that have been around forever. And so, yeah, it becomes like a cultural identity and a tradition in a way that like as a video game can't be, because video games aren't even that old, let alone a video game that anyone's playing competitively, which I assume the oldest one is StarCraft 2?
Probably.
Sorry.
Or StarCraft 1, yeah.
StarCraft for esports?
I'm used to calling. I forgot that the first StarCraft is. I forgot that the StarCraft with Brood War and all that is 1.
Yeah, it's just called StarCraft.
I'm just used to like Diablo 2 and so on, and then like Diablo 2, Street Fighter 2, like how there's like all these games where like the previous game no one ever talks about.
Like like MLG exists, like the Major League Gaming scene exists. You can go on there and you can see like what are the games. Like here I can look right now, and it's not a big list. Like Call of Duty, Overwatch, World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, StarCraft, Diablo, Heroes of the Storm, which is like pretty much almost all fucking Blizzard games, by the way. And I'm assuming that's because MOBAs
that's pretty
like League of Legends and Dota are not, they don't go through the MLG. They probably have like Steam has their own Major League section for Counter-Strike and Dota, and I don't know who owns League of Legends.
Their in-house tournament.
Yeah, but like you can see that. So like MLG apparently is just an Activision Blizzard thing only, but all of their games have a competitive scene. And like, what is a competitive Diablo? What the fuck does that mean? I've never even heard of this. How do you have a competitive?
That's just speed runs.
I got the most loot faster than everybody else. Okay.
Yeah. Is it just ladder?
It is ladder.
Like every
yeah.
new season's
Yeah.
ladder, or is it because the PvP is shit in Diablo?
Yeah, like what
Like
do
I
you?
remember
That sounds
doing
awful.
it. I remember doing it for the novelty of it. Yeah, you go teleport to Act 1 and you go fight each other outside the gates and so on, and steal each other's money like a dick. But it was never that interesting. You pretty much one shot each other.
Yep.
Yeah,
Whoever
I
landed
think this
anything
is-
first won.
Yeah, okay. I'm
Yeah.
looking at like the schedule for Diablo, and Diablo has no events. So this is just MLG must just be owned by Blizzard Activision, and they just listed all of their games here as like a okay, here's our games.
Flex.
I
Yeah,
wonder if
like-
I wonder if that's what MLG always was, or if they just did the annoying thing that Machinima did, where they like named themselves a thing that people were already using as a name, or like what Let's Play did. Like Achievement Hunter just has a Let's Play channel called Let's Play, and it's like, motherfucker, we're all doing this already. You can't just call
no,
it
I'm
yours
I'm
Let's
looking-
Play. Or how Machinima
looking
doesn't even have
here.
Machinima, but it's
In
called
to- in
Machinima. It's like,
January-
fuck you.
In January 2016, video game publisher Activision Blizzard announced its acquisition of Major League Gaming, a
Yeah.
company whose own esports division is led by MLG co-founder. That's on Wikipedia, though. Yeah, but that is the reason. That is exactly what you're referring to, except with a little bit of less naming.
Okay, so
But
they just bought
just
them and
bought
were
it.
like, easy, clap, clap. Now we own a Major League Gaming
Yeah.
service.
Now we
But-
are the Major League Gaming, even though none of our games, almost none of our games are the top competitive games at all. It's just StarCraft.
Like and it's weird. Like I said, it's hard to gauge what is the, what are the top ML, like what are the top esports games that are being played, and what are their viewer counts, what are their revenues. Like like Fortnite still makes a lot of money. Is that still a thing? Is like Fortnite still a high competitive scene, or is it finally like fallen off the wayside and just being like a second life game for unsuspecting like children to give them money? Like, well, I don't know what
Manufactured
Fortnite is
Discontent
anymore.
is still one of the best YouTube videos ever made.
Like I don't know. It's a weird, esports is such a weird thing because I like the idea, but I don't feel like anybody is stepping up to make a good execution of it. Like like I just feel like regular sports have a pretty easy, consistent model. They all go onto one stupid television channel, and they're all owned by a huge giant league. So like NFL is owned by NFL. You know, like all football in the United States is owned by is like under the umbrella of NFL, and there's individual owners for the teams, but all of them still just like are under that NFL umbrella. And so if you want to watch football in the United States, it's either owned by NFL or it's like a college league. And college football is, again, it's like it's only localized.
That's one of the weird
to-
elements of like sports, is realizing like, much like how democracy is not real, like sports are like this element of like a bunch of companies fighting each other, and you have to be an official element of that overall company, and you can't just like be like, me and my friends are just going to be a sports team because we want
That
to
is-
and we're really good or
Yeah.
whatever. It's like
That is
it's
a reality very specific of the United States, though.
yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Remember, I think it was earlier this year. Liverpool and a few other teams in Europe announced that they were going to do something called the Super League or something like that, where they were going to establish basically a franchise
That didn't
across
go
Europe.
well.
No,
That reached me
They-
because it was such angry news.
yeah, everybody freaked out, and the reason why they freaked out isn't so much because of it's not necessarily because the fans wouldn't see their teams playing. It's just that the value that the fans have to the teams is just it's just on a different level here. A lot of teams are partly owned by the fans themselves, the people who basically buy shares, and those shares need to be public. Here in Portugal, I think the rules changed to be closer to what they are in the rest of Europe a few years back, but it used to be that the clubs could not be privately owned, even partially. And then I think it was like 20 years back they changed it to be halfway they can be privately owned. But even in the UK, where most of the kerfuffle actually happened, even in the UK, I think it's it's there's a lot of big clubs that are partially owned by there's a specific term for what the association of there's a term, I don't know the name, the term, but I know what you're referring to. Like,
there is still like this
buys a
element
team.
of control, though, of like, yeah, like you can't just decide to go play this other game with this other league or whatever because there's like an outcry or you get stopped.
But they
from
do
doing
that
so.
in the U.S. though.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying like this
Florida
is
Lakers, or isn't it the Florida? There's a team in Florida that it plays in California because that's where the money is, or something like that.
I don't
For
mean
baseball, I
like
think.
that's like when a team moves. That's not
Well,
really
there's
what I mean.
also-
Especially since that's not even changing leagues
Yeah.
or anything. That's just like changing stadiums or something.
It's
which-
also kind of convoluted because remember NFL's broken into East and West, and so so like there's rules where certain teams literally cannot go against each other. That's just how the rules are set up. And it's but baseball and I believe baseball and football follow the exact same method. I don't know how soccer works in the United States because it's such or your guys' football. Because it's such a nobody sport here. Like hockey, soccer, and hockey and soccer are nobody sport. So basketball, baseball, and football are like the American football are the big three in the U.S. Everything else is kind of like, oh yeah, I guess that exists, haha. And so I don't know how those ones are set up in turn if they follow the same procedure, if they all have their own little cute mega corporation that then dishes out money to the smaller privately owned businesses.
I was just thinking about the weirdness of how there's just such a level of control over like anyone that competes in like popular sports and so on. Like there's things you just aren't allowed to do and places you're not allowed to compete and a lot of things
there's
like
brand
that.
imaging and stuff.
Yeah, like you can't go like we're gonna go play in this league because we want to, like with Liverpool or whatever the fuck was going on there, or like, oh my goodness, the contract mess and like amount of control on like wrestlers, for example. Yeah, and like the things going on with that kind of stuff with the different leagues. We're like, oh, we're gonna do this new league or whatever, and it's like you will be blacklisted from the industry and stuff like that. And it's like it's not just simple like there are tournaments and you can compete because you want to, and you have a team because you want to be a team. It's all
the politics
darker than
in
that.
Sports is always. I think any sport will always have a lot of those backroom machinations. They don't need to be even backroom. They're just like the politics basically, and that happens because the laws or I suppose the rules change, or because there's more money. So that whenever there's more money at stake, there's always going to be more. There's always going to be people trying to get a bigger part of the pie.
Yeah.
Whether they deserve it or not. That's and usually they don't. But because specifically in regards to you, I mean, this conversation started because of when I think it was Andrew that mentioned college sports or college football. And am I wrong in saying that college football players cannot earn money for their playtime?
So yeah, they don't earn a salary. They can earn sponsorship deals. So they are allowed to advertise a Coca-Cola or whatever the hell, like regular sports stars do. But they cannot earn money. As far as I'm aware, they can't earn a salary for their playtime because they are literally not employed by anybody. They are just playing a sport for the fun of it. It just also happens to be a sport that's like treated with cult-like enthusiasm by the United States. So it must be on television. People must be shouting. Like, sorry, go.
I think you're explaining it the other way around, though. You say they cannot earn a salary because they're not employed by anyone. What
Correct.
if you explained it like they're not employed by anyone because nobody wants to pay them a salary? Because that's
no.
crux.
But that's not the thing. Is that so? College football is where you get drafted to go play professional football.
I know. No.
And
Which
so
is a
it's
farce
not that they
because it's clearly already professional football.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes,
it's really fucking gross.
That's the thing. Is like you're basically competing because it's a business. College football is like the interview for a job. So if you do good at that interview, then someone will offer you a position at the job.
It's like a
which
multi-year internship where you can be permanently disfigured.
Yes.
for the
So
hope
you
of
and
maybe
yeah,
getting to do the real job, but also people are already profiting on you in the scale of like hundreds of millions of dollars the whole time,
and so that is
every
the
single worker is an intern.
And so that is the scummy part, is that, yes, these colleges do make a good fat stack off of your generous labor contribution with no compensation given to you. Though, in the flip side, most of those people are usually given scholarships, like full ride scholarships, to go play professional football at whatever shitty UC they go to. So, like, if you go to UC California and they have a great football team and you did fantastic in high school football, they'll give you a full ride scholarship. They'll pay for your entire schooling if you come and play football on their team, because that football team is what makes them a huge amount of money. And so it's like this really, it's like again, this wouldn't be as much of this whole thing would not be nearly as enticing if college wasn't a huge money sink. Like if the full ride scholarship didn't exist because everyone got college for free, this would not be nearly as profitable as an industry. Because you can't, what do you say to these college kids? You're like, yeah, come play football for me out of the goodness of your heart. I promise it's worth it. And they're like,
you could just pay them. No. It's not like it's going to cost you that much.
No, you can't pay them because colleges don't have money. They don't have money to pay them.
Of course they have money. They have all the profits.
He's lying because they're lying.
Colleges are always poor. They literally are on the brink of bankruptcy every day of their lives.
Yeah, he's telling their lie.
Yeah, and so they can't.
I understand.
Yeah, and so they can't do this, and so that's why I'm saying is like, yeah, I agree. It's a really insidious. It's a gross thing, and this is only recent. Like college football being broadcasted nationally and being it's hugely invested is a newer thing. This has only sprung up in the last like 20 years. Before, college football was way different. College football, you still got your full ride scholarship, but college football was more of a training to be in the league. Like, you know, you go through all of this hard work because this is what it takes to get into the league. And then from there, scouts watch your games. It's like it's more of a hometown pride. It was the idea of like, yeah, I don't know, pick a shitty city. Like
they demand so much performance from you and so much like practice and training all the time that it just dominates your life and runs who you are essentially to the point where it's completely unfeasible to actually have a job. So the fact that they don't even pay you like so that you can actually have like just to take care of yourself is just absurd.
And then this is why primarily the full ride scholarship sounds appealing, is because it's mostly people who can't afford to go to college. They're grabbing kids who tend to be in situations that like don't have the financial stability to afford a $50,000-$60,000 a year college.
That is so.
But
my God, I'm sorry. Your college is just—it's so ridiculous, so expensive.
Oh, yeah, our country's fucked up.
Yeah,
oh my God. I know those are the numbers, but it's just.
I mean, Jesus. let's not talk about numerical values in the United States. It's not fun. But so you know, again, they're giving these kids that don't have an opportunity to afford college because the system is so fucked and they don't want them there in the first place. But wait a second, they can provide valuable, commercially viable labor for us. And so if you just give them this like really cheap, affordable, free ass education that they get subsidized anyways, then because like all of those football fields, all that stuff is subsidized by the city or the state that you're in. So it's not like the college is paying to maintain these football fields that they are making profit off of. That's just us. We do that. We pay for those to exist. And so all they have to do, the only upfront cost they have to pay for is coaches and college tuition. And college tuition is free. They decide how much value there is. And it's not like these kids don't have to still pay for books. They still have to buy their stupid books, and they still have to buy which they live on a dorm.
Themselves just a scam.
Yeah. So it's not. It's very insidious. It's very gross. And this the entire point of a college football team was more in its beginnings was supposed to just be the next stage. You know, like you have high school, people get excited about the high school thing. You go to college, you excited about the college thing, and then they have some of them go to professional, and it's like, again, it's like a hometown feeling. You go like, oh, cool, I watched this kid from high school, go all the way to the big leagues. How I'm impressed with him. And now it's a lot less fun. Now it's a lot of like, you have a whole national attention on you. People, like, more people are judging you than ever before, and you're not getting any reward or compensation for this attention. And like Keith said, it is very disfiguring. Like, we know for a fact that football is very damaging to people, specifically their heads. It damages their brains very much. And there isn't really anything to do about it. You can't just like, well, I have all these fat stack monies from the NFL, I can just fix my brain. No, bud, that's it. You get one. And when you start having concussions every fucking match, you get brain damage, and you just kind of walk away from that. And it's not good. But again, this is, it's still, all of this is still under the umbrella of the NFL. Like, there is no other football league these kids can get into. It's not like they can spend all of these years training in like college football and then go to like play for some other league. It's only NFL. That's their only option. And so what that creates is that there's a very, very, very limited slot for like hundreds and thousands of children playing football. And so on some level scale, it becomes kind of a really stupid waste of time to invest your body and your life, or like years of your life.
Your whole career is completely at the mercy of one like weird collective corporation thing to choose to give you a future. Otherwise, you just kind of wasted your time to some extent. And also, like, even if they give you like room and board and food and like keep you alive and clothed and safe, but like that's all they do, and that's what they do instead of paying you, it gets into this weird creepy territory of like the old pre-union like company store, where it's like,
it's like the miners that living in a miner town,
but we'll never pay you money. We'll pay you our fake company money that you can only use with us. Like, yes, it's like the military, where it's like you're like taken care of technically, but you have no ability to like function in society. So you can't really like, you don't have any real ability to like leave, because you can't be like, I'll just go out and use the money I saved. Oh wait, I don't have any money saved up because they don't pay me. So I can't be like, I'm going to get an apartment over here and look for jobs in this town, or like do anything else, which is why people were usually trapped in those factories during the company store days, is because they had no societal mobility.
Yeah, and the flip side argument here is that, again, at the core of college football is people having paid scholarships. So they are still getting a degree in something. However, that degree, it kind of weans based on, these people are passionate about being football players. That's usually what they want to do, or baseball, or
like
soccer, or whatever the hell you're there for.
When it's like, how much are they actually even going to class?
Yeah,
I've heard stuff about college athletes where it's like they're just pretending to be students in some cases.
Yeah, a lot of them will get some kind of like business degree, because it's a nothing degree. It's a degree where you just say like, yeah, I know business. And you're like, all right, bud. Well, you're gonna still start at the very bottom.
Dr. Stonks.
And so so it's not, you got gonna like. And again, there are some I have seen. Of course, there are outliers here. There are people who say, yeah, I'm gonna do college football, and if that doesn't work out, my fallback's gonna be like socioeconomics, or I'm gonna be a fucking teacher or something. And that's fine. That's a completely that's a very mature, smart, and rational decision. But it kind of also comes down to and a big thing comes down to your parenting. Like, if your parents are in this kind of cultish, insidious assumption that you're going to be the next superstar quarterback, then they're going to like push you hard to not focus on anything but football or but baseball, whatever the hell you're there for. And much like how children actors are, and they're like pushed in this really insidious, like, no, don't have friends, don't have lives, don't do anything else, just practice, get ready, just do your thing. And you don't have these fallbacks when it doesn't work out, because it doesn't work out. Like the survivor bias here is so crazy. Yeah. Like the people you see in the NFL are like one in millions of people vying to be in.
It's like when you only see the successful YouTubers.
Yes, and
which is generally the only ones you ever find, because that's the ones that get shared with you.
Yeah, there's a lot of you know, as America does, there's a lot of really insidiously nasty, bad things about what is basically just a bunch of people playing a sport, like a silly caveman sport. Take ball, throw ball, unga bunga. Like, okay, pretty easy. But somehow there's like a gross mega corporation, well, monopoly corporation behind it all, making people's lives worse in like trickle down ways. So, but that's not universal. Apparently, it's unique to the United States that we have created this horrible dynasty.
I think what drives the exploitation of the players in the US is more the fact that it works as it's a franchise, so it's not a pyramid scheme, but it is a pyramid scheme, and it's just a legal one, in the sense that the ones at the top. Yeah,
it's just a great ad against capitalism, because it's just a great reminder that if you don't actively fight against exploitative practices, they'll just find a new excuse. Like, this is where we can do this. See, because it's this part. It's college, so we're allowed to do this. Like, they will find every fucking loophole to excuse just treating people like shit and getting away with not giving people their fair share while making millions of dollars. Like, that's every facet of society. If it's not actively stopped, it'll happen again in another way, and they'll always find it.
That's why there's always that humorous, like, over.
Because if you won't do it, someone else will.
The thing that you always need to think about is accountability. Who is accountable to whom? It's the people who are the people at the top accountable to. And in capitalism, they're accountable to the people who profit off of them, which usually are just they're known as the stakeholders, but it's kind of complicated. What is the term for, like, for example, who's the boss of Apple? Tim Apple. Who's Tim Apple accountable to?
Tim Apple.
He is accountable to his shareholders.
Exactly, that's the word. Thank you. Thank you.
And shareholders is a very vague term, because so technically he is held accountable to the board of directors. And the board are the people with the majority shares in the company, because it's a publicly traded company. So technically, we are all the shareholders for Apple if we own a stock in it. But there are obviously people that have a lot more money invested into this company, and so they decide. They happen to be the ones who decide how companies run to get a return on the investment that they have put into it. So
if the system that Apple exists in were to be democratic, the accountability wouldn't be to just a small group of rich people that maybe they don't even really use their products all that much. It would be to the actual people who benefit or profit as in, benefit from using their products. Those would be the ones that would be that the boss of Apple would be accountable to. Because that would be more democratic, right? So what happens here in Europe, as far as I understand it, is at least partially, there's rules and there's a bunch of legalese and all that, is, for example, here in Portugal, one of our big clubs, football clubs, their president has always been a contentious character, and there's elections every year for their president. It doesn't have to happen for every club, but for that particular club, like every year or almost every year, there's a new election, because a vocal majority of the fans don't like him, and he's accused of criminal things, and it's a big mess. But those elections go forward because there's a principle of democracy, basically, of just sort of allowing the people who are fans of the club to have a say in where the club goes. And of course, it's the people who are fans of the club are not the ones making the decisions. That's where accountability comes in. But the problem is that in a system where profit exists, immediately you introduce the sort of role of people's lives are at stake. It's like when GameStop had the stock thing, a lot of people's money and livelihoods were at stake. It wasn't just for the memes, although for a lot of people it was. But because profit isn't just people being greedy, although it is, but it isn't just that. There's a lot of people who have their savings and all that sort of stuff, and the same happens in football as well. So that's why it's what Keith was saying. You just cannot allow those principles to get into football or sports. The principle of profit is just, it's counter to sports. It's just bad. It's just, you shouldn't do, like, there's a reason why, I think, I'm not, I actually, I would need to read up on this. But so correct me if I'm wrong, or help me out here. The Olympics, they're all amateurs, right? They're supposed to be amateurs. They're not professional.
I have no idea.
No,
I'm already out of my
Olympics-
depth in this whole conversation, and
okay.
Olympics I know nothing about.
Olympic stars are like, well, so I guess you could call them not professionals because they aren't part of a team. Like the professional basketball Olympic stars are not like current playing basketball stars.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that they aren't ex
Of course, yeah.
basketball stars, or that they're not like people playing on that level that just aren't drafted for that. Because like, so technically the I only know how it works in the United States. The American Olympic basketball team is just like a regular NBA basketball team. It goes through the same motions, the same recruiting section. It just has a more rigorous training field because you only get the Olympics like every 40 years or something.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
And yeah, if you're lucky. And so you have to qualify for that, right?
And also,
so
the Corona kind of screws it up.
well, yeah, but the
That's what I
the
was
premise
referring
here
to.
is like the premise here is that like every 4 years you get to compete, and hopefully you make it enough to get into the Olympics. And but these people are still, so they are not professionals in the sense that they are not household names. They are not, you're not going to see whoever did the Olympics selling Wheaties until they finish the Olympics. Once they go to the Olympics, then suddenly they are now celebrities. They are people because they represented like what's his stupid name? I forget his name because I don't really care enough. But the swimming guy, Tom Phelps or whatever, Phillips or
Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Phelps.
I think Phelps is
Whatever.
right. I don't know about
Phelps.
I don't
Tom.
remember
Whatever
his first name. Michael.
whoever
Michael
that
Phelps.
guy,
The weed guy.
Michael Phelps. There you go.
Michael
Yeah.
Phelps.
That guy. And so he's just a literal nobody until he went to the Olympics. But he wasn't some nobody who had never been swimming before. He had been swimming on a professional level and practicing on a professional level for swimming for years before he went to the Olympics. So it's something you start, like, again, this is just a path you take. Like when you're in high school, you say, I'm going to be a professional swimmer. And when you get to college, you have a two-prong goal. You could either go for swimming doesn't really have an NBA equivalent, but like basketball, you could say, I'm going to be a professional basketball player. And your options here are either you can go to the NBA and live this like long ass career playing in the NBA, or you can take the other route and go and be an Olympic athlete, which is, again, it's a more rigorous and painful training process, and you may not even make it, and you just get kicked out, and you have accomplished nothing with your career.
That's what I was referring to. There's like this sort of, it might change from sport to sport, but at least there's this idea and this tradition behind sports that it can't be it can't be primarily for the money, and it doesn't mean that obviously. It's not just if you earn money with the sports, that's not sports. You're corrupting it. I'm not defending like an extremist point of view here. What I'm saying is that when you introduce profit to any system, you always need to be very, very careful about what incentives that profit is gonna create. And if nobody's if the people on top are not accountable to anybody, or even worse, if the only people that are accountable to are the people profiting off of their if basically a boss of a company tries to make the company as rich as possible, and if there's people who are like sort of they're parasites basically at the end of the day. They're hooked up.
Well, it's like, why is Activision such a bad, horrible company that makes every wrong, worst choice? Oh, because their literal only incentive is to make the people that are happy only happy when the number go big.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
That's the only thing. That's all. There's no morality element. There's no additional factors. It's just literally like make this one number go big no matter what.
Well,
it's literally like you're literally playing a German tabletop game, and there's just a victory point condition, and that is the only thing that exists.
I think there is. You say there's no morality. There is a morality that they just don't care about it, because like the people on top, they know that their company. If we're going to talk about Activision, we can talk about Activision.
That's my point. Is like
NFL.
It's the.
Exactly.
The morality exists in the world. They exist in the context of a society, but the morality is not a victory point condition.
Yeah, basically.
It's like if you find out that like murdering a bunch of farmers is how you get all your points in Carcassonne or whatever. It's like you're gonna kill those farmers because like
that's what the game is.
Who cares if they're light side or dark side in the tabletop game? It's just how you get the victory points. Like that's how companies are run. It's like there's just choices that give you victory points and choices that don't. And that's most of capitalism, and its callousness is basically just broken down by if you just think about it in terms of like German style tabletop games, which are the ones that are very much like point oriented. There's always like victory conditions based around points, and they're always built around like making this engine to get points, and the theming is just sort of like a light context around that, but you could play them without any of the theming and still like have a game.
I think the danger is believing that anybody who gets to the top of a system like that can be good. Because it isn't about
because they made literally every horrible choice that better people refused to do, which profited them, which is why they're on top.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because they get like it doesn't matter what goes inside their heart.
Bad people.
Exactly, absolutely.
If they were good people, they wouldn't be billionaires.
They wouldn't be. Yeah, exactly. That's it. Because I think the problem is that we are humans. We empathize, and when somebody tells us that they have our best interests at heart, they might even have our best interests at heart. Like when Google says "Don't be evil," they don't say it anymore. But when their motto was supposed to be "Don't be evil," we sort of, oh, that's nice. Look at them. They're gonna make sure that they benefit as much as possible and profit off of all their software and all that as much as they can. But they're not gonna be evil. They must be nice. And this sort of empathization that maybe gets like Bill Gates is a darling in many people's eyes, or what's the guy from Tesla, the weed
Elon
guy?
Musk.
I don't remember. Elon Musk.
The other weed guy. Additional weed guys.
Like we look at those billionaires, and
that was such a calculated PR move.
Yeah,
I mean, most of stuff that
I'm gonna go on the
do
Joe
is a
Rogan
calculated PR.
experience and do a weed, and that'll make people love me more. Meanwhile, I run a company where people get fired for this, but don't look at that.
Also, I got all my money off of blood mining in South Africa.
Yeah, but
he's a nightmare person.
Literal slaves and children. It's just the worst thing. The more you look into them, it's like I think Bill Gates for me was like the eye opener, because I knew he was scum from a long time ago, but there's a different style of being scum when people say, oh, look at him breaking the competition software to get a leg up, or look at him being like stealing the original Windows code and making a profit off of it. That's bad, isn't it? Yeah, it is, but it isn't as bad as giving money to.
Then there's Elon Musk's greatest crime, which was going on Saturday Night Live and not knowing what Wario sounds like.
It's impressive. It's impressive how Elon Musk is like clearly just wearing a mask.
He's such a fake gamer girl.
Yeah, and so
he
people
doesn't
just
know
can't
shit
stop.
about video games. He couldn't get through a fucking SNL skit about Wario where he just sounded like Wario successfully. Like, not even a bad impression. It was just not an impression of Wario. He doesn't know what Wario sounds like, and he played him for an entire skit that was presumably his idea because it's a shitty pandering gamer thing. But his fucking understanding of video games is so shallow, despite being half of his brand, that he's like, Mario Am I right? I'm such a nerd because I know Star Wars guys.
The first,
like he's doing such an impression of a gamer the whole fucking time, and it's so fucking exhausting because it's so easy to tell, but people are so desperate to have their fucking nerd billionaire to hero worship that they're just willfully ignorant of it because it makes them feel better. And it's like, no, there's no good part of this. He's both not you and he's a shitty, horrible person. There's no win.
There's also, I really hate the really fun disconnect people do where they say like, he's doing it to troll people. He knows that it's wrong. And it's like, no, he's just actually that dumb. He's like that. You can't like, there's a difference between somebody who is willingly trolling. That's actually like a comedic thing. Comedians do that. And he's not doing it in a comedic sense. He is literally that stupid. Like,
also, why would people think that he knows that he's doing it on purpose? What kind of intelligence has he shown? Like in that regard, anyway.
Well, he's presumed to be a genius by default because if you're rich, that means that you're literally all the best virtues American society could ever create in a person, including being a genius and beautiful and passionate and on the right side of history. Because richness is seen as a moral victory in this country. They're conflated.
Yeah, exactly. That's the issue, though. Like the winning at life, or it's like the winning at life is just how it's the whole thing about money being like people will say this unironically, saying that your bank account is basically your score in life, and the higher it goes, the better you are at life, the more winning you have done. And
jokes on them. I have 15 bank accounts and they all have numbers on them. So I have more banks than all of them combined.
You play more games at the same time. Your safe's coming. No.
Exactly.
But like that, saying that is not that needs to be a satire, because if you say that unironically, you don't understand the problem with equating the being successful in capitalism with the goodness. Or with success, success is relative all the time, right? Because if you don't set out to do something, you're not successful, you know. You have to remember. You
have to remember that people like the average person here is like a middle class American, and they feel like there's a relatability there. They feel like they are on the ladder. They're part of the staircase climbing to that goal. And they don't understand that they aren't even on the same, like they're not even on the same playing field. Yeah. Like a billionaire is on one of those escalators going up. They don't have to do anything. The escalator just keeps going. Where you're gonna have to climb, and your staircase is so tall that by the time you get to where they even are, you had to have died hundreds of times to get there. Like there's not enough lifetimes for you to make it up there. And people use these like minor, tiny, insurmountable people with like small wins. Like you take Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates and you say, well, they didn't come from blood money. And it's like, Bill Gates was at a very expensive college. It's not like he was going to like, like little UC local town. He was going to like an actual university. Same with Mark Zuckerberg. He was going to like, wasn't it like Yale or Harvard? And these are like, these are incredibly expensive schools and hard to get into. So they already have this financial backing that's like way more than you'll ever get. And so that financial backing is a safety net that you'll never have access to. And it like Bill Gates just quit college. He just didn't have to, because he went to college, got what he needed, and then happened to buy this shitty DOS application, turn it into Windows, and boom. But like that's you can't do that. That's the thing. It's like you yourself cannot do that because you don't have all of the factors that led you up to getting to that point. And people keep forgetting that. They think there's like this.
Oh yeah, it's really common for any sort of rich individual or company to exploit a system in order to get where they get, and then immediately try to make what they did illegal. Like how the fucking Disney Corporation made their career off of I always want to say open source public domain properties, and then immediately fucked with public domain so that none of their stuff would become public domain, because we can't have people profiting off of our stuff. What would happen if Star Wars just became public domain? I guess it'd probably be better. Can you imagine? It'd be nice actually if
Well,
Star
they
Wars
did
was
that.
just like Sherlock and Lovecraft, and it was just like a thing that anyone could just do stuff with. That'd be so much better.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I still
I
haven't
don't know.
watched any of the movies, and honestly, the more time passes, I'm just like, no. I
personally don't think Star Wars has an interesting enough premise to hold itself up already on its own, and I don't think it has enough to hold itself up like in an open market. Like Star Wars at its core is a really boring story of good versus evil. With
There definitely isn't nearly as much material as there is with like Sherlock
Yeah.
to have a mythos
Yeah, like-
and a thing.
you can keep making shit up.
movies,
Like
at
you
least.
could take a Jedi and say like, this is Jedi butt sniffer McMees, and he went on an adventure to go kill a bunch of Sith on some planet you've never heard of,
The
and you're like,
extended universe
"Oh,
people are going to be so angry at
all
us.
yeah, but it's
They're
like
always
I
angry
don't,
at
I
me,
don't
though.
know. But it's weird. Like you can take any kind of Star Wars story and you go like, let me guess, there's a Jedi and he meets a Sith and they fight, and it's like,
and it's
yeah?
always the last
Oh.
Jedi, always.
But it's always like a Jedi alone or a Jedi in hiding or running away or something, because you're not going to pick the height of the Jedi Order. You're not going to pick like when everything was peaceful and good, because then it's boring. You're
Well,
like,
yeah, 'cause Star Wars was partially based on that one Japanese director's movies, the samurai director guy.
yeah.
I knew the name,
Uh,
but yeah, the Seven Samurai thing.
So the
Yeah.
whole like samurai cowboy setup is kind of important. The Lone Ranger sort of situation.
Yeah,
not
but
literally
that,
the Lone Ranger. I haven't seen the Lone Ranger.
it boxes you into a really boring story.
Yeah,
Because
I
all you
think-
get is all you get is like a good person overcoming an evil situation, or you try to subvert it by saying like, oh, and the good person died, which is like, yeah, I know, I watched the movies. The only Jedi left is like that lame guy who was wearing a fucking stupid Chuck E. Cheese outfit. Like,
It's a
Cool,
franchise
dude.
about fighting fascism that has relatively little interest in actually interrogating that fascism.
well, I mean,
And the
based on
closest,
Disney,
the
apparently
closest
that
they ever
fascism.
got was the trilogy people hate.
yeah,
The,
as
the
far as I know,
prequels,
it, that's
the
true.
prequels were the most interested in actually discussing the fascism part.
I
Wow.
think for me, the issue with Star Wars, it's not just the issue with Star Wars. It's the issue with franchises that aren't grounded in. Like you say that it's the same premise, but Star Wars isn't about its premise, because the premise really is just about there's this person who maybe doesn't know their parents and they go into an adventure with whatever, I don't know, but that's the premise of a movie. The backdrop is the fact that there's Jedi and there's light side and there's Sith. That's the backdrop. That's sort of the setting. You can do anything with you want with the setting. It's not like, for example, you know what I mean? There's a distinction between a premise and a
It's our 1 million views idea is Colonel tries to explain the plot of Star Wars without watching any of them.
I think
Just
I know
like-
how it goes. So the first episode is not the first episode, is the fourth. Right?
Yeah.
And
First
there's
episode's not the first episode. It's a good start.
and there's this dude that flies around in a spaceship that isn't his, and he doesn't do it very well, but everybody thinks he's very cool. He then gets a bunch of friends. I think one of them is the Wookiee, and then the robots. And then I think he goes and fights the Dark Vader one and throws him down a ventilation shaft in the big space ball that I don't know the name. Death Star, that's the one.
I mean,
So that's
it's-
fourth episode, right? Am I?
You have genuinely not watched any Star Wars.
No, yeah.
That's
That's not the
impressive.
fourth one.
It
No,
took me
I
a while to
don't know.
figure out, and I'm still not entirely sure if the main character was Han or Luke in your story.
They might be the same person in my head.
But there's a lot to unpack. I don't want to
I mean,
correct you
Star-
because I want you to keep going.
So that's the fourth episode. The fifth episode, which was called the episode 5, I think originally, goes. So Leia gets kidnapped, I think, and then she has to wear a skimpy dress, and of course the boyfriend can't tolerate that, and then goes and saves her. But then, surprise, she's your sister, and then he says no, and is very famous. And I think at the end he gets frozen in like this big jelly thing that's like it's not jelly, it's like this metal thing. And is he the one that gets frozen, or does he freeze the enemy? Actually, I don't know.
Neither. Actually, surprisingly, it's neither of those answers.
Don't. He's just got to keep going. He's got to keep.
Okay, that's episode 5 in my head.
You're right. Someone does get frozen, but
Okay,
neither
there we
of
go.
those
I knew
options was
that.
right. Yeah.
And then in episode 6, which is the culmination of the trilogy, I'm sorry, I haven't watched the movies. I don't know what happens. I have no idea.
You covered all of episode 6 in both of the other episodes.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. So it was like only the bits that...
you covered more episode 6 plot points than any other episode.
Oh, come on. Well, I guess there you go.
All right, it's the prequel trilogy. What happens?
The prequel. Okay, so it starts off with the kid that cries a lot, and the Jedi go, "Oh, you can't cry. Shut up. You're a baby," and then he becomes really angry. My God, the prequels are
someone
impossible
watched
to know.
Pop Culture Detective.
I might have. The prequels are impossible. I have no idea. I know that they at one stage.
I mean, you got the emotional core of the trilogy. Shut up,
fair.
baby. Stop crying.
And then I'm gonna become Hitler then. And then everybody claps.
I mean,
was
sort
the
of, I guess.
There are several parts where everybody claps in all the movies.
Star Wars,
Probably not
the
at
best,
the Hitler part.
If you're never sure about what the plot of Star Wars is, it's always a boy with daddy issues. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's every Star Wars. That's
All right,
the prequels
so
are about a boy with daddy issues fighting his dad and losing.
Wait, stop before you go. He's got to do the sequel trilogy.
Oh, the sequel. No, that's the easier one, I think, because I was in Twitter. So the first one is basically the 4th episode, but with new characters. So that's easy. And then the Mary Sue as well. Many Mary Sues show up.
An army of
many, an army of Mary Sues.
Yeah, it's just like
they were called the
Revenge
Many
of the Clones.
Sues.
Then the second one is the good one, where they actually don't have dumb tropes and ask interesting questions about the characters that they built. I don't know the plot. I'm sorry. And then the third one is the one where everything goes ape shit, and there's a dagger in space pointing at a planet. And,
Okay.
And that's it. That's
I mean, everything's technically in space, so you're right.
Yeah, yes.
fair enough.
There's not any not space in existence, except for whatever is not in space, I guess.
Yeah,
Anti-space.
I think the sequel trilogy is the one with the least amount of context here. There's not a lot to go on, but
I really don't know what
Pointing at a
happens.
planet in space.
yeah. So the prequels are about a child coming to terms with disliking his father figure and fighting him later and losing, and then becoming a bad father himself, which then leads into the original trilogy, which is about a boy who doesn't know his father and ends up going to fight his father and winning. And that in turn creates a situation in the sequel where the real main character isn't actually Rey. It's what's his face? The boy. Forget his name
Kylo
now.
Ren.
It's Ren, yeah. Kylo Ren is the main character, and it's about him having daddy issues.
Solo.
And
That's when he punches the wall.
Yeah, when he
with
kills his dad, he realizes
famous
that it
meme.
wasn't actually daddy issues. He's just a mentally unstable child.
Your
and
daddy
has to-
read just made me realize that all 3 sequels are about killing a father figure, basically.
Yes, I'm not joking. This is literally the entire premise of the movie. It's about boy has dad issues and fights dad at the end. That's it. Every fucking Star Wars trilogy is about fighting your dad.
Yeah, but in the sequel trilogy, it's every movie.
Well, yeah, in the sequel trilogy, everyone's fighting a dad, which is like because you have to condense all of the original trilogies into its own movie each time. Because apparently that's like what the sequel trilogy's MO was. It was like, how do we condense all of the original Star Wars movie into one movie 3 times? And like that was the outcome they got, which is great. It's great. I
Great
love it.
might
I
not
can't
be
wait.
the word.
I cannot wait until the next 3 episodes come out, and it's just going to be literally like the original trilogy every 15 minutes of a 2-hour movie.
I mean,
so you're just
look forward
having
to
like,
the Disney remakes of the original trilogy.
how do you even do that?
They're doing it to all their other properties.
I really hope that the remake for the original trilogy,
It'd be
I
full
hope
of
it's
making
done
a
with-
remake.
It's gonna be full of annoying metatextual jokes about how like what a parsec isn't a unit of time. Who winks at camera?
I kind
Wait,
of hope
they
they,
use parsec as time? Oh no.
yeah.
They,
I
because
really
it was just a throwaway line. But then this fucking stupid Solo movie spends half of its runtime explaining how someone was able
no.
to get to a distance in X number of parsecs or less. And they retconned it to be like a shortcut he took through a space vortex or something.
That's
Like,
not necessary. If it's a
he got
throwaway
there-
line,
Yeah.
you can be jokey about it.
No, every throwaway thing that people have been like joking about as being a quote unquote plot hole for the last 40 years, but it never really mattered actually, is what all the new movies are about. All of Rogue
my God.
One exists as a movie just because the Death Star had an exhaust vent that was the weak spot in the original Star Wars. And like, that's a plot hole. We have to explain it with a whole movie. And it's a bad movie.
that only
of
makes more
course.
plot holes, but
Yes.
that's okay. We don't have to talk about that.
Not even Mads Mikkelsen
It's-
could save it.
I'm really hoping that the redo, when Disney eventually goes back and redoes the original trilogy, they decide to just like throw it all to the wall and make the main character Mickey Mouse. And I hope it's like Mickey going through this
It's
journey.
just Star
and,
Wars
like,
Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope that like Darth Vader is goofy. So like when he takes the mask off, he's like, "Gosh, Mickey, you did it! You saved the Empire!" Like, and I want Donald to be Palpatine. Like that sounds great. Where he's like, "Kill him! Kill him!" Like, yeah, when Darth Vader electrocutes, he's like, and he like flies off the ledge.
No, Luke. I am your father, Max. Oh no! It has to be Max. It can't be Mickey because it has to be Max. It has to
No.
be Max. It's too good if it's Max. I unironically do want a big stupid
No,
goofy movie or
no,
whatever
no.
it's called sequel to be a Star Wars remake of A New Hope.
Wait, even better.
Or Empire or
I
whatever.
want the prequels to be. I want Obi-Wan to be Goofy, and I want Anakin to be Max. That would be better. Because could you imagine? He's like, Max, I have the high ground. And he just leaves his burning sun on the ground.
Your empire.
I don't know any of the lines.
Could you imagine him finding like it's like old Goofy finding a young Mickey?
That's just confusing.
It would be great. And then you have like you can replace R2D2 with Pluto. He's just the dog, but he's just looks like a robot.
That would make some sense. What about
Make
the
I
other
don't know
one?
who
Look like
Who's
a robot.
C3PO? I don't know who C3PO is. That's a tough one. I guess you can make C3PO like
Make the three little minks, the little things, just put it inside of a case, and it's like
I don't know. I'm running
that's
out
why
of Disney characters.
This is reminding
You
me
know the-
mostly how much I don't like any of the Disney roster outside of Goofy and Max.
What's the name of the little minks? What are they called? Are they squirrels? What are the little three?
Minks?
Are you talking about Chip and Dale?
Chip and Dale.
Oh,
the Rescue
no, I was thinking
Rangers.
Isn't that one
want, like,
where there's three? I thought, yeah, Chip and Dale might be the one
a
I'm
group
thinking.
who's you think of the Chipmunks. Alpha and the
Chipmunks,
Chipmunks are
yeah,
not
make them-
Disney.
Well, no, I mean you
At
could be
all, I
thinking of
think.
Rescue Rangers, and Rescue Rangers is Chip, Dale, and the girl.
Oh, it could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Chip
the
and
one.
Dale
you want
is-
like you
Chip and Dale's is also
You want,
just
like-
such an obvious adult joke slipped in there as like the name of the entire thing.
you want like Chip and Dale standing on each other's shoulders to make C3PO.
Yeah, that's why it
Like, what
walks
the hell
funny.
is-
That's why it walks funny.
It's
It's
multiple
like,
people.
it's like two fucking chipmunks in a robot suit pretending to be somebody.
Exactly. And then when the head gets lost on that part that is very problematic for the nature of robots, it makes sense.
Because one of them's in the head, the other one's in the body.
Yeah.
Just rolling around. It's like when somebody has a horse mascot and it's two people.
Oh fuck! Does that mean what's his face? Does that mean like Count Dooku is Pete? That would be great.
My God.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Can't help you there. I don't know. Count Dooku sounds like a made-up name, like Buttworth or something.
It was that one actor that's been in more movies than anyone ever.
Wait, who is?
Now he's dead.
Who's
That was a bad
Yoda?
summary of somebody's career. He was in more movies than anyone ever, and now he's dead. He played Saruman.
Oh, Christopher Lee?
Yeah, Christopher Lee played Count Dooku.
He does Star Wars? My God,
he's
that
in,
man.
He's in every.
I mean,
his IMDb
Liam
is like
Neeson-
400 movies.
Liam Neeson is in the first Star Wars prequel. Like
Isn't
he's
he from
Qui-Gon
Star Trek?
Jinn.
Yeah,
He's the
Yeah.
Make it so, right?
and I guess he's still in movies. I thought he like self-destructed when he had that creepy quote about wanting to murder somebody.
Oh yeah,
not.
I saw that.
That was like distressing for several reasons, but also I was like, why did you just volunteer this? Did you decide that this interview is just the end of your career? But like, I've seen another movie he was in, so I'm like, I guess I don't know if that actually had the fallout I thought it was going to have, but I thought his career was
it
over
never
with
does.
that conversation. I was like, what the fuck?
not-
Why did he do this?
Yeah, I can't think of a Yoda character for Disney. I don't know who like would play Yoda.
I don't know the Disney pantheon
Oh!
very well. I don't care about any of them.
You can switch it up and have Kermit the Frog be Yoda.
Oh no, don't remind me that Disney like snatched up
Disney,
fucking.
Yeah,
that makes me
Disney owns
sad.
Jim Henson Corporation, so they
That's
can just put fucking
That's a really sad
They
story.
own everything. They own everything.
Kermit in.
Yeah, but Jim Henson
Star Wars
specifically is like a
movie.
really sad story about how they got it. I don't like any of that. Oh.
Well,
Where are they
yeah, I
going?
mean, I don't think any of Disney's acquisitions were a fun story to talk about.
No.
Like, it's not as if
yeah.
But that was like a
of course it's
feud
terrible.
for a while.
Well, I mean, it's
And I-
also
and I-
more depressing when you realize that like he died without having really any of the things he wanted happening.
Oh yeah, because
So-
at the core of this whole story is a guy that he overworked himself so hard for so long that he just died one day in the middle of all these productions at a really young age, and then people just kind of tried to keep going, like, oh fuck, he's just dead.
Yep.
It's like
Yeah.
the Disney story about how Disney died, except you actually care. Because
No, Disney killed himself because he's a fucking idiot. Like, hey, Walt, maybe you should stop smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. Nah, busted
gonna smoke-
unions. And
I'm
now
gonna
he's
smoke-
dead.
yeah.
And you're like, well, I'm kind of seeing a problem here, bud.
Did he actually die because of smoking too much?
Yes, he died of lung cancer.
It's,
Walt Disney was a notoriously heavy smoker, and against every fucking person who told him otherwise, including the stupid horrid amount of money he had that had access to doctors that no one could have, telling him, Walt, you're gonna fucking die. It's like, nah.
He was the original anti-masker.
It was I mean, he
It's
knew
the
what
same
he
level-
wanted in life, and
It's
he
the same
got
level of self-destruction and I mean, it's not because I think that's not even self-destruction. That's just like when you're
It's-
used to just you're the one who says it how it is. It can be difficult for you to
take in any information besides just like, no, I know how the whole world works. Every choice I've ever
Yeah,
made has worked
yeah.
out so far.
because there's two things that
The
play
survivor's
whenever
bias just poisons your whole mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's two things that play at the same time. For one, you need to admit that somebody else knows a little bit better than you whatever it is. Either it's smoking or it's masks or it's vaccines. And on the other one, it's you need to acquiesce to them. So you need to not only do you need to admit that you don't know as much as you maybe wanted to, but also you need to change the way you act based on that fact. So it's a double whammy of you just sitting the fuck down and knowing your place because you're not a doctor, and then you smoked yourself to death. Which
I
in
think
his
it's
case,
more of-
wasn't he a
I
terrible
don't think
person
it's-
anyway? So
I don't think it's that he thought he knew better. I think it was more if he just didn't care. He
No,
didn't
yeah,
care
it's not
that was the risk. Like he
I'm not
just
saying-
yeah.
I'm not saying like it's a conscious thing. Maybe he probably knew. He probably admitted in his even to other people. But like it's sort of like it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do anything about it and to believe it.
It's like the adage about teenagers thinking they're invincible. Like, they don't say it out loud unless that's sort of like a bad script, but there's that that the behavior reflects it, the idea, in a not entirely literal sense.
I think for him there just wasn't any benefit to quitting. Like, quitting smoking didn't really provide any positive outcomes. It only would make his life more painful and stressful. So it's probably better to just keep smoking and not have to, I don't know, endure the whatever threat comes with owning a giant media corporation. Well, it's a theme park corporation first, I guess, but
I'm also in talking about smoking, I am ignoring the addictiveness of it. So it's slightly different than wearing a mask. But
yeah, because I mean, he grew up smoking. Like, this man has been smoked all his fucking life. So it's not like he picked it up in a sense of like,
he's an addict basically. So it needs treatment, not it's not just a matter of deciding or wanting to.
Granted, I will say his arrogance was the height of his arrogance was not understanding that unfiltered cigarettes are far worse than filtered cigarettes, which was a weird decision on his part, because I don't know how you even enjoyed unfiltered cigarettes, to be honest. You had to have been a lunatic, because that is like the nastiest, unpleasant taste possible. And that man smoked 2 packs of unfiltered cigarettes. Like, fuck, man, you might as well just like put guns in your mouth and shoot yourself, because it's probably less painful. I don't know what the hell you're thinking.
That is a lot of smoking.
Crazy.
My God.
That's a lot of smoking. Like, I don't know, man. That's a lot of smoking.
He didn't do anything. He owned a super company, so like he has time to do it. But still.
Oh, that's right. Not even true. I had plenty of time, and I still couldn't smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. That's a lot of. You're literally spending more time smoking.
Coming from somebody that had to like leave during most Let's Play recording sessions to go get like a carton.
Yeah,
and he's saying that's a lot of smoking.
That's a lot of smoking, man. And like I worked from home. I could have just smoked. I could smoke literally all day, and it still wasn't enough to smoke 2 packs of cigarettes. Like, that's literally smoking in your home
it's like the only thing holding you back was you forcing yourself to do it outside.
Yes, basically. Like, if I didn't have to go outside, which I guess Walt didn't have to. He owned everything. It's not like
didn't he live? Didn't he live basically in Disney World or?
Well, yeah, he lived in he lived above the fire station in Disneyland.
Oh, did he?
But yeah, he did. That was his house. What's it called? His house was above there, and so it was. And like a funny twist is he would go outside in the morning as the park opened and pick up his paper, which was on the ground in front of the stupid fucking firehouse. So and people are just walking into Disneyland, and he's just like, "Hey, how's it going? Getting my paper," and goes upstairs, and it's like
smoking 3 cigarettes in the process.
Yeah, like you could basically encounter Walt Disney having a cigarette coming outside, and you're just like, "Oh, look, honey, there's the guy who made all this," and he's just like.
Nah, well, he owns the people who made all this.
Yeah, not to be Elon Musk conflated, but with those being the same things.
Well, okay, there is a little bit of fairness to give here. Is that he was much like Steve Jobs. He had a lot of hand in the creative process. He didn't have the labor. He definitely wasn't the laborer here. But he wasn't. He wasn't just saying like,
oh yeah, like the whole thing was happening because he got like fascinated with like seeing a train set or something.
Yeah. Well, no, he got fascinated with a theme park. He went to a theme park as a kid, and that theme park inspired him. The train in Disneyland was because like later on, after he already made Disneyland, he needed a hobby, which wasn't creating a theme park. And so his hobby was trains. And so he got so involved with train hobbies, he almost got divorced because he built a fucking train in his backyard. And so the compromise here was instead of having a train in his fucking backyard, he would build one in his stupid theme park. And so that's where the train in Disneyland exists, because otherwise he wouldn't have been married. So I guess good job. But he creatively was in charge of all of the designs. He had the plan for the worlds. He had the plan for how things looked. He just had Imagineers help him design the basically it's like he had a story in his head and he asked someone else to write the dialogue. is how you would describe it. So he sat there as like, sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that's usually the story with old companies back then that survive up until now. Because if you think about it, there's a lot of companies that were big at the time, much bigger than Disney, but they haven't survived up until now because they didn't have that leader person that would then eventually be superseded by groups of people that are now in charge of Disney. But like, there's that Ferrari
misnomer.
was a little bit like that, and there's some companies that I can. Well, there's Ferrari. There's what I'm thinking of right now from the 50s that are basically one person.
Ford's the same way too.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of examples, but at the time there were already companies that were enormous, like specifically companies in aviation and milling and mining and gas, and those companies just sort of have come and gone because they don't have the same holdover or the same sort of. It's not the same. It's not the same thing.
Yeah,
right.
There's a. It's not as if that they are, like Steve Jobs didn't make an iPhone. That's not his thing. He didn't like revolutionize the world.
No, the people in the factory with the suicide nets did.
Well, yeah, they physically made it, but the people who designed the iPhone were people that were, like engineers and intelligent people. But Steve's power was being able to corral these people and get them to make the thing. People saying like, you can't make a touchscreen phone, Steve. That's fucking stupid. And he's like, no, you're fucking stupid. If you don't bring me a phone tomorrow, I'm gonna kick your ass. And like, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not saying he's a good person, but that's why those things exist. Is because you have this like a asshole who's in charge of who's in control of a company, and people are subservient to that asshole. But the asshole is not incorrect in his vision. He is correct that the product that he is wanting to get made is a product that is going to make a lot of money. The problem is that the only way to make it is by exploiting people and punishing them in a way that pushes them in an uncomfortable place. And you have the stories of like Apple engineers who like they made the iPhone and just fucking never did technology again. It murdered their entire enthusiasm for ever being in the field. And you can say that's a success. Hey, we did it. We built an iPhone. Now everyone has a fucking iPhone at the cost of corpses. But, what's progress without a little bodies? And that's how Disney worked. Disney was the same way. You have to, he had a vision and he pushed as hard as he could for the vision at the expense of a lot of things like unions and, healthy boundaries between work and, personal life. Like a lot of things, a lot of sacrifices had to be made that would have not needed to be made if, we lived in a better world. And in exchange, all we got was Disneyland. And I don't think it's a fair trade-off. I think it's a shitty trade-off, but like that's how those things exist. Which is why you're talking about when those people die, those companies stop innovating because like Tim Apple isn't a very good CEO. He can't do what Steve does. If the president called him that, then that's what his name is.
Yeah, that's what we're referring to. Let me challenge you though, because we need to think that in a lot of big companies, Google is a great example of this, but every other big company does that. Microsoft, Activision. Especially in technology, or rather in information technology rather than other companies. What they do is they apply a scattergun sort of technique. Like, because you said Steve Jobs had the right idea when he made the iPhone, but he had the idea about the iMac before, that colorful screen computer. There was the original iBook as well. I think it was an iBook that was just like a portable computer. That was also all colorful back in the 2000s, and they shifted all the Mac. I think it was because of him that they shifted to PowerPC, all their platforms from Intel to PowerPC. I think they started off as Intel in the 90s, and then they shifted. And so he made a lot of wrong decisions at Apple. And in fact, the reason why he was sacked
is
they kicked him out.
Other ones.
He got kicked out because he made wrong decisions, and not wrong decisions as in like. It's one thing to say that it was.
It's like how people remember the Trump becoming president, but they don't remember him trying to sell steaks at like a clothing store.
Yeah, or the 6 or 7 companies that he bankrupted, or his airplanes that had golden
Or
toilet,
his
toilet
general
paper or
net
whatever.
negative at running business.
Yeah, is it because that's how big companies work though, because the return is so enormous for a big company that it is okay to fail a lot. And then and so what they
Not
do,
in Apple's case.
Not in
Apple's
Apple's
case
case,
was
that is
very
true.
close to running out of failures.
exactly, Microsoft was the one that saved them basically. But
that was a different reason. They did that to avoid a huge lawsuit in monopoly, because basically
that was
if they
part
didn't,
of the reason though.
no, that was the whole reason. If Apple didn't survive, Microsoft would have been in a lot of trouble because they were the only computer company. And what do
Oh, I
you
see
do?
what you mean.
You're a mega you're like a mega monopoly. Every computer in the planet was using Windows. And if you don't have competition, which Microsoft isn't going around making, then you're going to have a hard time surviving.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
In a land where monopolies are illegal, open monopolies are illegal. So like Apple had to survive, which was the only reason Apple survived.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
they were
isn't
so
the
close.
world, or at least American economy, like more monopolistic now than it was before they started breaking up monopolies?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's like I said before, they'll always find the loophole or the excuse.
Well, so it's not that it became more monopolistic. It's that it's
you
not
stop,
we.
yeah, you stopped
It's more
fighting
that
monopolies, basically.
you have Republicans constantly defanging the FCC, and the less power the FCC has to break up corporations or have the money to go through and deal with all of these different acquisitions and mergers and going, actually, no, we did research and like Disney owning 90% of all global media is actually a bad thing for the economy. So let's like not let that happen. Instead of them having that authority and power, they have like less money, less time. And it's like the IRS. The IRS would work fantastically in getting all of those people who don't pay taxes if they had money to to afford paying people to do research and finding those people who don't pay taxes. But if you keep defunding those institutions, then they become far less useful.
Because the
and
people
so the
with the
FCC
most money have the most ability to then actually pay for the outcomes they want in the government.
Yeah.
And so then the
and so
government doesn't care about rich people and lets them just do whatever they want.
And that's why climate change.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's
I would
basically it.
Why
say
most of our
climate change
problems,
is-
honestly.
yeah, almost every problem can be drawn back to somebody saying, actually, this would make me more money if we didn't do anything good. And you can go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's okay.
Yep.
But yeah, no, if you want a successful company, you need a CEO who is just enough of an asshole to be to not be self-destructive, but like creatively visionary enough to think beyond what will simply make you a return on investment and what will make you into an empire. And finding people like that is like very rare, as seen by like Elon Musk being the shittiest CEO imaginable because he doesn't have any of those qualities. And versus like the people everyone wants to be, which is Steve Jobs, which is a guy who technically had the visionary aspect, but he was also just too much of an asshole to actually be a pretty good boss to work with. And so like it's a bad balancing act, and you rarely ever find people that can make it work. And when you do, more often than not, it's usually luck that it works through. Like Steve would have ran his company into the fucking ground if they didn't kick him out. And like that would have been it. Apple would have just ceased existing because he wasn't good enough
so
at being...
much. It happens so often as well. Like it wouldn't be a surprise at all. It's just like so many companies go bust because of that problem.
It would just be another... Yeah, exactly. And so when that's why when you see those rare visionaries happen, that's why they get these really cool like pulled up by your bootstrap stories. Like Steve worked out of his his garage and built Apple from the ground up. It's like, no, Steve abused Wozniak by stealing his labor for free and used this guy's actual ability to forward his own company. Like, you know, you look at like Walt Disney was the same way. Walt Disney didn't come from nothing. He had no money, but he basically showed up and abused like animators and stole public works and turned them into profitable cartoons for a market that didn't have cartoons, and used that money to create something on the backs of other people. Basically on the back of Anaheim. Poor fucking Anaheim City is just gone now. It's just Disneyland City. Like, but it's, yeah, and those, I don't know, those kind of things are, like Florida is the same way. Florida, like all of the Florida theme park was done by shitty rezoning efforts. Like he basically paid politicians off to get those zoning rights and created a giant, unnecessarily massive theme park in the middle of Florida, which doesn't, I don't think really it contributes much to the to the state itself. If you have
enough power, you just earn, which is just money. You get to just rewrite the laws around you.
Yep.
It's a trip rewatching the Hobbit trilogy videos by Lindsay Ellis this week and being reminded of like, oh right, because of because of how big of a deal Lord of the Rings was to New Zealand when they came back for the Hobbit, they were able to just negotiate changing the laws of the entire country and how the film industry works there just to their benefit, and that's horrifying.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens with states in the United States. Like Hollywood, like most of the time, filming in LA is too expensive. So why don't you go film
Georgia?
Why don't you go film LA and Georgia? And you're like why
please
would
stop,
you film?
It's like, please, Georgia, stop doing homophobic things. We're trying to film stuff here for cheaper without having to protest leave you. It's like the entire relationship TV currently has with Georgia. They're like, please be just don't be headlining, don't have headline news about how your homophobia for like a week so we can finish filming our show, please. Don't make us protest leave.
Stop being homophobic, anti-voting, and anti-mask, please, just long enough so we can finish filming our CW show, please. It's going to cost us like $3 million less than it would to do it at home.
So just give us another week. It was funny when you mentioned bootstraps earlier, because it's just, I always get a kick out of the fact that like people still use that phrase unironically, even though from day one it was supposed to be a farce.
Exactly.
It was supposed to be an illustration of how impossible it is to do that, because you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. They're on your boots. It's like it's up there with how people are like, just a couple of bad apples, talking about the police, and like the whole premise of the bad apples phrase is that the bad apples spoil the bunch.
Yeah, you can't save the tree. Like if a tree has bad apples, you must get rid of the tree, and it's like
no, it's the bunch, as in I think it is the bunch where you pick them.
Yeah, it's not the tree. It's
the one about the tree is a bad apple.
The spoiled apples will spoil the other apples.
Yeah, exactly. The one about the tree is that an apple never falls far from the tree, but that's not the same. That's not the meaning. The
just
bundle.
Like all of the most used phrases are just being used for the opposite of their meaning. It's incredible.
It's like the proof is in the pudding. It isn't. That's in the tasting.
Yeah.
But actually, that one is not as far away as the bunch of the apples.
But
I don't know much about that.
That's
phrase.
what we call in the industry good marketing.
It's what we call literally.
Literally.
Which now in the dictionary says that it means the opposite of it, so it means figuratively. As an alternate definition. That's how we use every phrase.
Yeah.
But that makes sense, though. If it is the figurative meaning of literally.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you can have the figurative and a literal meaning of the word. The literal meaning of literally means literally, whereas the figurative meaning
it means figuratively.
Yeah, it means the opposite.
This isn't confusing.
Not at all.
I hate it.
English is worse than that. It's fine.
English is way worse than that on a regular basis. We have much worse problems to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
The number of times I'm writing a script and I end up writing that, and I'm like, fuck.
Double that?
Yeah. And you're like, no, but the two that's are different parts of a structure of a sentence. So like it makes.
But the first one
you can write eliminate. That, but I'm like, fuck.
The first one you can always eliminate. A that comes before a noun or a pronoun.
Just the weirdness of the language structure where it's like you kind of have like all these gaps to fit in your sentence of like how it fits together and all these unconscious things. Where it's like I just know that I just will end up writing that at first glance because I just know that that's how a sentence has to go, in the same way that there's that weird, like, I think we talked about in a previous episode, there's like the series of adjectives for something, like its size and color and age and so on, and how like we've all been somehow programmed to know a specific order to write all those adjectives in without ever being told. just from repetition. Where there's there's a specific way you'll describe something for some reason.
But I think when you write it, those sort of ingrained habits can go away easily. I see a lot of times people who speak normally, just absolutely normally, and then when they write emails, it's incomprehensible. They don't finish thoughts. They write sentence in the wrong structure.
Is that more of a like a learned behavior, like a child is emulating their parent and their parent is using that kind of, or emulating their teacher or whatever they learn? It's like, is that a learned behavior, or is that just a natural progression in language? Like if you're not specifically taught to not do it, you wouldn't. I don't know. Like that's what I'm wondering is like, is English such a spaghetti that you'll end up doing that just because that's how bad the language is, or is that something you learn because somebody is using the language incorrectly?
I don't know. When I'm writing something that's meant to be said afterwards, I'm always torn between the element of like whether you should write stuff that's grammatically accurate for text versus stuff that's how people speak.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Writing,
so I don't know.
Writing definitely is rife with those pitfalls where you're just gonna either, because the thing is, like in speech you can imply so much meaning just based on your inflections and all that sort of stuff that you can just shortcut a lot of explanations that in writing you need to write it all down. And so it is easy for you to just, okay, I'm gonna need to explain this really well, and then it comes out weird with the that thing. What I see more often than not is people putting the like, for example, if I tell you write this text in your website, the last part of the sentence, you're in your website, I see a lot of the times I see that part of the sentence put before. So I see people literally writing, write in your website this text. And it is comprehensible, but it is infuriating when people do that. It just grinds my gears so much because it happens all of the time with multiple people that don't even work together. And it's just, why are you? Nobody says it. Nobody says it like that because you don't do it like that. But
they're
in writing,
Yoda-ing it a little bit.
They are. And I see that in video games as well.
The way I got their German actually was the fact that like the way that Yoda speaks is that you put the verb at the end of the sentence, because that's how Germans speak and that's how Yoda speaks.
Yeah,
I
remember you
It got me through
that.
all of German. It was very useful to realize that they just talk like Yoda.
Star Wars.
Wait, how does Yoda talk in a Star Wars movie in German?
I don't know.
Does he talk like
does he talk like in English?
Yeah, does he talk like in English? People are like, oh, that's a weird way to say things.
He keeps saying verbs unexpectedly early. Like a startling
But maybe it
verb
gets
jump
lost in
scare.
translation. Maybe just everybody
I don't
talks
know.
like Yoda, and they're like, okay, well, Yoda speaks normally.
It's always up to localization.
Like
I think about how like
Yeah.
Ni no Kuni had a fairy in it, and they're like, it's a particular dialect of Japanese, and they're like, you're gonna be Dutch, or like something like that. Like it was like a really uncommon accent to hear just in general in video games, and that was like really novel about it. And he like, this guy talks totally differently. I like this. But like that was their interpretation of dealing with the fact that like it was a particular Japanese dialect, and so it was supposed to sound different. But how do you pick how to make it sound different in a different culture? That's like less clear.
I like that. I also like what Disco Elysium does, which is just random accents. There's a lot of French accents, but there's some accents in there that's just like, why are you a voice actor? But good on you.
Yeah.
I mean, jealous.
I love Disco Elysium, but I get so much shit all the time because I just was not culturally ready for that game, because it's based around an entire continent that I don't live in, and a lot of a lot of it's referential and allegorical to really specific countries that I'm not in, and I'm like, like, why don't you know how to pronounce that? I'm like, I don't even know which language it's in to guess how to pronounce it first.
They don't even pronounce it in the game consistently. The voice actors don't know. Clashy, for example, I looked her name up, and there's one. I think it's the narrator that says Clashy, but then everybody else says it pronounces it differently, including herself. She doesn't pronounce it normally.
That was the one that I literally went into like a I went into a pronunciation
Translate.
website to just tell me how
Oh,
to
yeah.
pronounce it.
I should finish that game now that it's voiced, because I think that was like my biggest hurdle
Yeah,
when I
didn't you
started
play
playing. I
one
was like,
part and you were like, eh?
yeah.
You talked to
I was
some
like,
old.
this is
You went straight to the old people that I didn't talk to for like 4 days. I'm like, oh, and then you stopped immediately.
Oh, the old people
that
are
was
the best.
That was a lot of talking. I was literally like dying after doing the voice for both of them.
Oh yeah, the game is
And they
almost
just
entirely
talk
dialogue.
Yeah.
forever. And yeah, so that's why I was like, okay, I don't think
Yeah.
I want to play this game. It's too much talking. And then it was like, now it talks for you. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll play it now. Like
The ending
it
of
has
their
more
story is so
content.
beautiful. The ending
They
of
added
the old.
they
yeah.
added an expansion, like they added a quest chain to each of the 4 political ideologies that you end up going down. So every playthrough
Oh, that's cool.
has a unique quest chain to the particular direction you leaned in, and that's neat. I enjoyed going back and playing the communist storyline, which was an entire group of people trying to hold up an ideology through mental exertion alone via physical metaphor. And I'm like, okay.
So the Twitter warriors.
Now I'm really curious what the other ones are, because that was really interesting as a.
Well, I'm
as a
gonna see the
takeaway.
moralist one. Oh,
Like, can
by
they
the
make-
way,
Can they come up with them? Can they come up with any sympathetic narrative at all
Nah,
for the fascists?
they don't do it on purpose. They don't. They
just
they
like-
never. Not even the moralists are sympathetic. Every line of dialogue that goes like defending moralism, it's
Oh, yeah, they are
it's
so-
always underhanded.
I really get a kick out of when people think that the game has an even-handed neutral tone, because I'm like, no,
No, it doesn't.
They're dunking on everybody that isn't a communist in this game. Like they are overtly, like, they literally thanked Karl Marx at the rewards ceremony.
Yeah.
Like it's not ambiguous. Like the way that they dunk on communists is the way that you dunk on a fandom that you're in.
Yeah.
And there's a really big difference. But yeah, it's time
it's
to
very,
wrap
very
this up
different.
though. Before we get into Disco Elysium, because that's a whole thing.
Again,
Yeah.
we can do it next week.
Anyway, guys, thanks for watching like always. See you next time. Send your questions into dialoguechoicespodcast@gmail.com. I meant to open with one of them, but then we had an endless chain of conversation for 2 hours that started with my
Yes.
computer and ended with Karl Marx. So, normal day, I guess.
Yeah.
Just another Monday.
See you next week, except for statistically, maybe not.
Fair.
Goodbye.